Hulu is dishing out a taste of the supernatural in their new series, Helstrom. Based on the Marvel comic, Helstrom stars Tom Austen and Sidney Lemmon as siblings Daimon and Ana Helstrom, the children of a powerful serial killer who hunt down the worst of humanity. We recently spoke with stars Elizabeth Marvel and Robert Wisdom, as well as Ariana and Alain about the new series. Take a look.
I will start with if it's okay with you, Elizabeth. This role seems very different from what we've seen you in the past. What can you talk about making the transformation to this character? Because it seems very dark.
Well, yes, with this part, it's a 2-for-1. I get to play two different characters that are sort of united in one holistic creature, and that is wildly fun. I have to say, there's the Victoria character, who's this very nurturing, loving mother who suffers horrible trauma. And we track with her for part of the series. And then there's Mother, who is this dominant, evil, incredibly powerful demon. So it's basically like I got to be the entire cast of The Exorcist.
And Robert, can you just talk a little about the caretaker?
Yeah, caretaker. Caretaker, we meet him as he's engaged with the person whose life he has been taking care of for quite some time, Ana Helstrom. But he spends most of his time traveling the world to track trails of strange creatures and beings who've entered this realm. And he brings back objects of collectibles from all over the world. And he's an expert in that field. And that's what he brings, an understanding of the mysterious and the strange. And we see how it plays into the story.
Was there anything specific about the role of character that drew to it?
Well, I just, it's an actor's fantasy to play any kind of Indiana Jones type. It's a little swashbuckling from the old days, Earl Flynn and that kind of stuff, But when you go into these imaginal realms, these other worlds, and you play with where the portals are on the planet that these demons enter and come and go. And when you can map that, that's really a powerful thing. There's no government on earth that can match you. So,
Elizabeth, can you talk a little bit about well, first of all, did they approach you with this role, or was it something you auditioned for?
It was they approached me, and then I had to meet with them.
Right.
So yeah.
Was there anything about the character outside of the obvious that drew you to it?
Well, I have a 14-year-old son who's been reading comic books since he learned to read. So there's that. I got massive cred at home. I'm also a huge fan of the horror genre. I mean, I love the Marvel universe, but I really love horror. So I was super excited to work in that territory. And I think, it's like we've sort of built a new wing on the Marvel mansion, and it's all horror. And I think it's going to be a really new experience for fans. And I think they're going to dig it. I think they're ready for it.
Now you both have a pretty incredible body of work behind you, but Marvel fans are a different breed. Are you ready for what, may be coming down the line as far as fandom's concerned, and how people, perceive how you, portray these characters they're familiar with?
Well, so far, my son's friends really want to talk to me, and that's awesome. But that's been the extent of my experience.
How about you, Robert?
Well, I'm riding vicariously on her coattails. I mean, if her son if he's the beacon, then I think we're on it. I've seen a couple of other supernatural type shows and watched those fan bases and how rabid they are. But I think there'll be a little pause, hopefully, with I'm sorry, I did that sign. There'll be a little pause, hopefully, because we're going into a new aspect of Marvel conception, the world of horror and supernatural. And so it's going to be new for the fans as well. So we'll see how it works out.
I'm excited. It's sort of like being in a rock band. It's very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, if neither of you ever work again, you can at least do the con circuit from the rest of your lives, really, at this point.
Right. Yep. That's awesome.
That's why we do it.
But now as far Elizabeth, are you able to, because your character does seem pretty intense. Are you able to, between takes, between days, are you able to walk away from that character, or is there something that sticks?
I totally am. No. It's definitely, the darker the material, the lighter the person, is my experience. I've played Hedda Gabler, I've played Lady Macbeth. I've walked in those shoes for months at a time, for years at a time. So living with a demon, it's a place at work where I can put all of my rage, all of my fear, all of my aggression, and focus it and release it, and then walk away, take the costume off, and I'm just back in my lovely life. So it's actually really freeing and fun.
Robert, are you a fan of horror or the supernatural at
all? It's not the top of my list, but it is now. But
okay. Well, that said, are you able to compartmentalize, as far as do you see just as a role? Are you looking at it as a broad, this is a horror film, horror show?
Yeah, well, I have this kind of psyche that, I absorb a lot and I have to pump it back out. A long time ago, I did, Othello, and, for nights on end, you're killing your leading lady, with a pillow, nights on end. Sooner or later, after 18 weeks, it's kind of this weird thing that rages in you. So you have to find ways to kind of get it all out, your own exorcism. And I've had to do that on occasion. With this, not as much, but there were still a few things that I had to do to kind of wipe it away. Because it's strong material. You're dealing with really, really strong stuff. And I care very much about our mental health being as a society. So, I want to play my role to say, we're only joking over here.
First of all, what drew you to the question? We'll start with Ariana first. What drew you to the role?
Honestly, every role draws me if it pays, and that's initially
what a great honest answer.
I mean, I feel like sometimes we forget, like, as actors, as much as this is a creative endeavor, and we are so grateful, and after having worked on it, it's like, wow, I mean, such a privilege to have been able to, like, work with the cast and the crew that I did. But when I first saw the script, which were faux sides, like, we didn't get the real script, we got like 3 pages, and then they were like, do with it what you will. This will not be used in any of the scenes, but, like, play with it. So, like, I think with the little information that I had, I mean, it was exciting just because I got to play like a novitiate. I mean, I was like, this is very unexpected. My mom was, praying as much as she could for me to, like, book this role. She was like, this is in your wheelhouse. And I was like, well, we'll see. But yeah, I think, like, once we read the script, like, once we started shooting, I mean, there's so much dimension to Gabriella and complexity that I think a lot of people kind of have to deal with. The idea of your morals and your values and your ideologies and your religious beliefs, and how it's constantly conflicting with, like, the application of following through. The execution is not as simple as the ideology of anything. So it was really fun to have someone who was an academic, someone who went to school and actively chose to be a woman of faith. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it.
How about yourself, Alain?
It's same. What drew me to Christian is that, he's I think for me, it's really a privilege to work, period. And you know, to echo what Ariana said is like, you know, we're all working actors. We're trying our best. You know, this isn't, you know, we're not getting offers, so to speak. So it's not like we get to get a sense of like, oh, I get to choose my character. I'm going to do this and do that. No, this was an opportunity that presented itself, and we all had to work hard at our craft to basically be considered for it. And so when the offer did come and they said they want you to play the role of this character, there's a sense of relief and excitement, but there's also a sense of responsibility that we all have to make sure that we breathe life into the characters that they've created. And in addition to that, you know, this conversation about representation and how it matters. And I think, you know, for me, in understanding what the character can do in the aspect of Marvel universe and what that is, I think is really important. So to answer your question about what drew me into it was really the opportunity to, in some ways, flex and be like, hey, you know, representation matters, and we're here to tell a story about characters that are fully fleshed out and that are really human in that sense.
Were either of you familiar with the original source material, the comics prior to this?
Prior to this, no. I was familiar with the characters that are adjacent to Helstrom,
right?
And you know, all the you know, obviously Doctor Strange and that sort of parallel that happens there and everything else. I think it took my brother, who is a huge comic book fan, for him to educate me as to who the person was and what that world is. So for me, it wasn't. I had to buy all the comic books leading up to this as soon as I found that it was in fact Helstrom, for me to dive into the world properly to understand what the mythology was.
How about you, Ariana?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't grow up idolizing white male superheroes.
Oh, you didn't?
What do you mean?
I watched a lot of Selena, a lot of J-Lo. Yeah, I think I wasn't, it was always around, right, growing up, especially in the early 2000s. I feel like I saw a lot of Spider-Man. There was like a ton of like this Marvel universe that was just at its at the beginning of taking over the world. Right. So like I was exposed to it, but I definitely I wasn't a fanatic. And then Helstrom is just, I think even people that are Marvel fans don't even know about Helstrom. Right. Which is, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a different kind of experience because there's so much creative freedom there.
Now, Marvel fans, there are fans out there. There are people that are going to hold you to certain expectations. Are you concerned about, your fan interaction you may have down the line as far as how well you do not portray the characters?
I mean, I think, to be honest, if you become obsessed with what anyone thinks outside of like the people that genuinely want you to do better and like improve and like provide constructive criticism, I mean, you're going to be in for a lot of cyberbullying. Yeah. And I mean, I hope we did we did the comics justice, we did the TV show justice. I feel like the writing was incredible. Our showrunner was amazing. I mean, we have like the people on the cast, they're giants, like, I mean, these are powerhouses. So I hope that they're really pleased with the work that we did. But am I going to cry if a fan doesn't like what I did? I think it would be detrimental to my mental health if I took everything to heart. So no.
Yeah, I mean, there's a responsibility that we have, right, in adhering to that level of excellence that's out there already, in terms of what the expectation levels are for Marvel fans in general. And certainly when we at least for me, when I signed on to do this, was what's that expectation going to be like? What's that stress level going to be like? And at some point you just kind of have to let it go and say, hey, you know what, we're actually building something or creating something that I think at the core of it is the principles of what just solid storytelling is finding the truth, understanding what the conflicts are, and letting these characters breathe. And I think I personally think that the fans are going to love what we've created for them. There's certainly going to be a few that will be disappointed, like anything else. I don't think we're not going to be batting 1,000. But I think a majority of them are thirsty for something like this, where it's not a genre that was really utilized or seen. And so I think there is going to be a level of grace there that people are going to have. Like, they're going to be hungry for this. And this is a lot more mature. This also adds the layer of horror as part of the genre of the film, the TV show. So I think people are going to be pleased with what they see and excited for the future of it.
I think, you know, Paul would say this all the time, but you can just tell in like the writing and you know, the episodes that we have seen, we took a really big swing. This is not like any other show. And in the best way possible, as someone that is not like a Marvel fanatic, I just love good storytelling, and especially character-driven stories where everyone has an arc, everyone has just kind of this delta we experience as human beings. And I feel like it's super grounded in that way, and we're addressing some serious stuff, whether it's like metaphorical or not. I think those are all just very nuanced and unexpected things that Marvel is doing with this TV show. So I'm really proud of the work that we did.
Helstrom premieres Friday, October 16th on Hulu.